It's going to be partly a personal video, and I think it's important because I want to talk about this to share reflection. So maybe people out there who can relate to what I'm saying, and I think it is important to share ideas. Um, so this isn't going to be about politics or social issues or anything like that. Well, maybe social issues, but it's a bit different from my other videos in the sense that it's more to do with um, issues that aren't really connected to controversy as such. Um, yeah, I want to talk about friendships, just the nature of friendships, relationships in general. What I find, basically, in recent months, I've had a bit of disappointment, let's say, or letdowns, and it's caused me to have a lot of self-reflection, a lot of reflection in general on the nature of relationships. Now, people who really are my friends don't need to feel offended by this video because we're still friends, and that's something I value deeply. Um, so if this video ever becomes viral or something, then people who really are my friend will know me and will know why I'm making this video. Um, I find that in life you meet a lot of acquaintances, a lot of people who you would call an acquaintance. You meet them through work or maybe see them a few times and you get on okay with them, but being the nature of an acquaintance, it's not here or there. You don't dislike them, you don't particularly have a lot of time for them, but you don't dislike them either. It's like, oh hi, how's your day? This sort of thing. So I think we meet a lot of people in life like that, and that's fine. Acquaintances are good because you can learn about human nature without getting too close. Um, then you get friends. These are people who you would associate with a bit more. You would maybe do social things with. And if you were organizing a specific event, you would specifically invite those people. Say, for example, you want to go out 10-pin bowling or you're having a party, they're the people you would invite. Um, Now, I believe that the majority of friends, they're not good friends. And that's not a hostile statement, it's just a reflection of reality. And this is what I'm driving at. I think in life, you only genuinely need a few a very few close friends. If I was to make it a bit more scientific, a bit more comprehensive, maybe you have friends, closer friends, and very close friends. Um, in my experience, I've found that I've drifted apart from people who I thought were close friends, and it's been hard. I'll be honest. I've found this a very difficult experience because I'm someone who does really value friendship. So when it happens, the natural thing to do is you ask yourself, have I done something wrong? Why has this happened? Why have we drifted apart? Was it something I said? Have we done something wrong? And you find if you're all like me, if you're a reflective person, you'll find that that's what you do. You reflect on it, you analyze it, you wonder what has gone wrong. And sometimes there may be some things that stick out. Maybe there was an argument. Maybe you find that you had something different that could not be reconciled. But I think that what we need to do is also be open minded to the possibility that actually this is not necessarily a bad thing. Drifting apart. It's not necessarily a cynical thing. Okay, it could be bad in the sense that it disappoints us, but it's not necessarily an unusual thing. I think as social beings, human beings want to find reassurance. They want to find confidence that all these people are different, and not everyone would agree with my analysis here. But I think a lot of people want reassurance that if they like somebody, if they get on well with somebody, that feeling is reciprocated, that that person respects them as well. Um, if I like somebody, I care about them. it does matter to me what they think of me. And I know there's people who say, oh, you shouldn't care about that. But it's something that really does take time to learn if you're a social person, because of course it's a normal thing. If you respect someone, if you like someone, and I'm not talking here about romantic relationships, I'm solely talking about friendship. Because romantic relationships is a bit of a different situation on some level. Um, you want to feel that that person respects you and likes you as much as you respect and like them. But the reality of life is sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And sometimes circumstances just change. People might get married, they might move away, or they might be from another country and they've inevitably went home, and that's caused a distance. There's a lot of circumstances whereby things just change, and I think it is difficult because, like I said, I believe that human beings are social creatures. We find validation in our interaction with others. A lot of people say, "Oh, you just have to be confident and not care what people think, and just move on." Now, I think it's a little bit hypocritical saying that because I think most people, if they're being honest, value this sort of validation from others. I know that some people are more sensitive than others, but I honestly think that if someone is saying that they never care what other people think, that they can easily just forget someone, I really don't think that's an honest thing. I think that some people do find a way to adapt to it, and they find a way to adapt to it and to move on quite easily. But I don't think anyone can truthfully say that it is entirely an easy process. If you've been close to someone and then you find that it's just drifting apart, maybe the person's always making excuses, or you're just finding that it's not working out, then I think most people, if they have valued that friendship, they would find it difficult. And I think they're being dishonest if they say that they don't. I do think you get people who are more sensitive and who would take it more seriously. And I don't know if sensitive is even the right word. Maybe it's just that they do value that more, whereas other people find it easier to be a bit more independent and to not genuinely not care so much. But I think most people honestly do value it to some extent. Um, I just think that we need to recognize that life is not a fairy tale. The hard reality is there's only a very, very, very small number of people who really. I don't necessarily think it's about trust because when people drift away, it's not necessarily that they're insincere. It could just, it really could just be circumstance. Um, I'm the sort of person, if I feel close to someone, I need communication with them on quite a regular basis. Not every day, not even every week, but regular enough to know that it means something. Sometimes, of course, there's cultural differences whereby human communication varies from culture to culture. It could be east west, it could be different parts of the country. Um, I've had a few complications with some of my Chinese friends, for example. Maybe some misunderstandings in communication. And I'm not talking about a language difference, because these are people who have a very high level of English. I'm talking more about a cultural, you know, just different interpretations of how communication should be. And it does take time to learn these things. If you have friends from other countries, and it works both ways. I'm sure it takes them time to learn about Western understanding of that as well. Um, so if you have international friends, which I believe is a healthy thing, I believe it's good. I believe it's an open-minded and good thing. It can take time to really understand the interaction. Um, so yeah, basically, I find that in life that what I have learned from this experience, I like to think I've learned something from it, and that is we just cannot rely on people. Emotionally speaking, you cannot. Even if a friendship seems really close, if it seems you're talking to that person all the time, It is difficult when that changes, when you find that you're talking to them less, when it drifts away. It's difficult. No question about that. It is difficult, but it's also, I don't think we should view it as a strange thing, and I don't think we should think that it's necessarily our fault or their fault. Sometimes this really is just something that it's the inevitable traction. Now, I was speaking to one of my genuinely good friends yesterday, and she put it this way. She said that she used the expression passengers in life. I like that expression. I think it's quite an interesting one. Passengers in life. That makes me think that life is like a very, 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 very long train journey. And let's say, if you have a long train journey, the distance between stops are not all the same. Some of them are, the gap is a bit longer, some of them is very short. And maybe that is like meeting people. Some people you're destined to be good friends with for quite a long time. Some people you're destined to be friends with for a much shorter time. And then a very small number of people you may well be friends with forever. But I think that's very rare. Um, I would like to think that the people I consider to be very close friends right now, I'm going to know for the rest of my life. And one or two of them, I suspect that might be the case. But that in itself would be a gamble because things, and sometimes it isn't even drifting apart, sometimes tragedies happen. I don't want to be morbid, but this is a reality. Sometimes tragedies happen, people can be taken away in a different way. I spoke to another friend about this. She said that she lost a friend in a car accident. Now, that's something no one could have foreseen. That's different from, drifting apart because someone gets married or they move away. That was a that was a intervention. It was a tragedy. So the truth is, we just cannot rely so much on others to always be there. It's I think if people are sincere about friendship, they should support their friends, and I do think it's a test that when you're on your darkest moments and you need a friend, if they're there for you, I do think that that is something that really replicates the idea of whether or not they're a close friend. But we also need to be strong enough not to always emotionally rely on people. Um, and it is difficult. It's difficult because as human beings, we're social creatures. But that analogy about the train, I think it's a good one. Um, and try to imagine it like this. You speak to someone on the train journey, you get on well with them, they get off at their stop and say, oh, goodbye, have a nice day. And maybe life is like that. You get on well with people, you get close to them, their stop comes and they go. I think when you get close to people, there's an expectation it should last forever. But the reality is, it just isn't destined to be that way. And some people, like I say, are very good at adapting to that. Personally, I don't mind admitting that I find it challenging. I don't think I'm exposing myself as weak for that because I don't think it is weak. I think it's natural to feel that way. And I think a lot of people out there would feel the same way. But the important thing is that you learn from it. Um, and by getting more distant from people who I had seen of as very close, what I've learned from this experience is all the things I mentioned in this video. Um, so this is it really. We just need to. I'm not saying that this is not for a second saying that we should promote the notion of cynicism. I'm not saying don't trust anyone, and I'm not saying we should expect that every relationship is going to end saying goodbye. That's not necessarily true. But we should be open-minded to the fact that just because things are going well and just because you're getting on really well with someone, it would be nice if it lasts forever. But if we gamble on that, if we rely on an idea that it will last forever, we're going to be hurt because most of the time it doesn't. So I think it's better to just enjoy it while it lasts, just to enjoy the memories. And then when it drifts apart, you know what? It's not easy, but it's natural as well. It's not necessarily, you know, um, people tend to think, well, what have I done wrong? Maybe nothing, and they haven't necessarily done anything wrong either. And they not might not be subconsciously thinking, oh, I want to get further away from this person. It may just be the way it works out. And sometimes there's disagreements, and that is the reason. But I think more often it's that you really do just drift apart. And drifting apart isn't necessarily um, a cynical thing. It's not necessarily a negative thing in itself. It's difficult sometimes to accept, especially if you miss somebody. But then if they're giving the indication they want to move on, then you need to accept that as well. So, yeah, I'm just sharing views here based on my own experience. A few closing points. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to get sympathy here. It's not about that. I'm simply sharing my thoughts. And I believe this experience has probably made me stronger in the sense that I'm now more expectant of this. And in the future, I'm not going to be cold with people for the sake of it. Certainly not. If I make new friends, that's great. But I am going to be open-minded to the fact that you just cannot bank on any friendship lasting forever. I think that the friendships that really are for real, that are really genuinely close. Sorry, not for real, but that are really close. I think the true test is that well, actually, for me, one barometer of this is what I would call the argument test. What I mean by this is when you first meet someone, quite often there's this kind of nicey nice, like you're always kind of getting on well, and I think one of the true tests of true friendship is actually having a heated argument over something. I'm not saying I enjoy that, and I'm not saying in itself it is a good thing, but by knowing the other person's contentions and differences, if you get through that and you still talk to the person, that's a good test. Now, it could well be that sometimes you have an argument with someone and you think this is terrible. We're now enemies. We went apart, but it could actually be that it ironically brings you closer because then you know each other better. I have had situations where I've had heated rows with people, and I've actually found that in the months afterwards, I've actually got closer to that person. So sometimes getting that, it's almost like breaking the ice in a way, because when you first meet someone, you tend to be very close to them, or you tend to be, there's a lot of politeness and there's a little bit of a distance. Now, something, for example, in Chinese culture, I read that people drop all the niceties at a certain point. They drop all the pleases and thank yous. In Western culture, especially in the UK, we tend to be we value politeness quite a lot. And we tend to use those terms even to close friends. Now, the Chinese understanding is that if someone really is your friend, then it's not necessary to use all those niceties. You just know. So sometimes there is cultural differences in how we understand friendship. But I think if something is destined to last, there is some indicators that that is the case. But my final word on this would be don't don't feel devastated if friendship doesn't work out. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that that person suddenly dislikes you. It sometimes really is just a natural process. And believe me, I know it's hard, and I don't like people saying, "Oh, just forget it," because to me, that's like saying it's not a big deal. I know that it is difficult. I can totally empathize with that. I do think it's difficult, but the important thing is that you learn from it and that you try to. I don't like to say toughen up, but try to be a bit more independent. Human beings are social creatures, but it doesn't mean that we have to rely on others emotionally speaking. Um, anyway, do let me know your thoughts on this. If you've had some experience yourself, feel free to share it if you want to. Um, if there's anything that you've learned that you think is useful, feel free to share it. I'm only making this video to share my own experience and, as peer advice. I'm not an expert. I don't really think there are any true experts on something like this. I don't think you can have an expert because then the expert would be a world guru at relationships, and I don't think anyone can honestly claim to be an absolute perfectionist when it comes to human relationships. Some people are very skilled, that's true, but I don't think anyone can truly claim to be a total expert because nobody can claim to have had an absolutely smooth ride. I really doubt that. Okay, I'll leave it there. I've spoken for a while. Thanks for watching.